Well, I know we have a really packed schedule today, so I want to make sure that we get rolling. This will be recorded, as you can tell, and the recording will be available not just for the candidates, but also for our membership. We'll send it out to our members in Northeast and Northwest Ohio so that they'll have the opportunity to go back, listen to your comments, engage with you, the candidates, and we are just so pleased to see you all here this evening. I want to give first a little bit. I'm Emily Shriver. Let's start there. I'm Emily Shriver, the new CEO of the Matriots. And this is my very first candidate event. So I am excited to see you all and very, very proud of you all for the work that you're doing out in your communities. It is awe-inspiring and encouraging to all of us. Some quick etiquette for the Zoom. Please keep yourself on mute, as you're all doing already. While we're talking, we're going to make our way around the Zoom room. When it comes time for you to speak, go ahead and unmute yourself, and then go back on to mute when you are done, please, to not pick up the background noise. If you have a question or comment, go ahead and stick that in the chat. We will try to get to that as quickly as possible. I think we have a guest moderator this evening. I'll introduce her here in a minute or two. But first, we have a format for this evening. I'm going to briefly introduce who the Matriots are for you all. And then we'll go around and you can give your 2-minute stump speech and tell us who you are, what you're running for, and the reason you're running. And then we'll move into a question and answer period where we'll learn a little bit more about you, and that, as I mentioned, will be shared with our membership, which will be a really rich conversation with you all. So first and foremost, the Matriots are an organization that started in 2017, looking to encourage women who are running for office and invest in their campaigns. We have grown over time. And invested in more women's campaigns each time we come out of the gate. We've invested in primary elections, and now in this general election for 2021. This year we have endorsed 139 candidates in 72 different communities, and many of you lovely ladies are some of the ones who we have endorsed for this year. We have candidates who are running for school board, city council, for mayor, for township trustee, for city auditor, and for municipal court clerk. These are all of the different types of local elections we have going on right now, and all non-judicial races. So we're really proud to have been partnered with women across the state. And this evening's discussion, as I mentioned, is the northern part of Ohio. We'll do this again for the central part of Ohio, and then one more time for the southern part of Ohio. But this will hopefully give you time to engage as well. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and go around the room. I'll call on you, so it'll feel a little like school, but I'll call on you to give your 2-minute stump speech, and we're excited to hear from you. So going in the order of people I see here, Sarah Keppel, can you go ahead and come off mute and tell us about your run for Lakewood City Council at large?
Sure. So I'm Lakewood City Councilwoman Sarah Keppel. Almost 2 years ago, it was activated and engaged women like you who encouraged me to apply for the open seat on Lakewood City Council. I felt called to serve then like I do now because I have kind of a unique background as a community organizer, a longtime public servant, and an entrepreneur. So I started my lifelong career in public service as a librarian at Lakewood Public Library. As I moved working for and with diverse populations to the county public library system, I was concerned that a lot of our students who were served by lower funded schools were not receiving adequate access to technology education. So I started leading technology initiatives throughout the county, which eventually led me to start my business GigaLearn to take that learning to more people in more places. Doing that work, I'd always been socially engaged, but after 2016, I got more engaged and co-founded Action Together Lakewood area. We organize lots of demonstrations, collective activism, and actions, including the Hate Has No Home Here rally in downtown Lakewood. So that tech and organizing experience was really helpful when I was appointed unanimously in February of 2020 to Lakewood City Council. Less than a month later, I wrote my first ordinance to allow us to meet remotely. So we were first in line for federal funding for our first responders, rent relief, small business support. I'm one of only 2 women serving on council currently. So it's been important to me to increase access to government. So I initiated e-comment for public comment to make it easier for people to participate, championed live streaming of our council meeting with closed captioning, and I'm working with the ADA task force to make sure all of our public spaces are accessible to all of our residents. So the Matriots have been hugely impactful in my race, and I'm really excited to be here, and I'm so glad to see everyone tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and great job with the timing. That was really well done. So next up on my list around the room, I see Stephanie House. Stephanie.
Hi, well, good evening, everyone. I'm Stephanie House. I am running to serve as the next councilwoman for Cleveland's Ward 7, and I am running for city council just because, I love my community, and I really am the return on the investment from this neighborhood. I grew up, went to all like youth sports and things of that nature at the local recreation center, arts programs, was fortunate enough to graduate from a Cleveland Public School and went to college, came back and started a youth program. And I serve as the current state representative now, where I've been focusing on policies to really improve the quality of life, specifically most of those who have believe they have been forgotten or live a life where it demonstrates that they have been forgotten and disconnected to power. So I am taking this journey because I do believe that I'm in a place and I'm committing to my community members that I am working to protect our community, engage our community, and fight for our community. And these are the skill sets that I've demonstrated in Columbus. And I know, if given the opportunity, I can do that here back at home. People know, Cleveland is a hard nut to crack for women, where currently right now there are only 4 women serving on Cleveland City Council out of 17. And all the statistics tell us and lead to when you don't have representation, bad things happen because people drop the ball. And so hopefully in 21 days, we can push forward and we can be victorious. I'm really thankful for the Matrix support that I got back this summer. I always say that initial investment that you all made really helped me to get my one and only billboard that I got, and I was able to recycle it, and it's a good one. So if you're near 55th and Chester, just know that is due to, the investment from the Matrix, because billboards, who knew billboards were this expensive? But thank you all so much. And then I will be hopping off really because I actually have a meet and greet that someone is hosting at 5:30. So please excuse me in advance.
Thank you, Stephanie. I see Margot Puffenberger next around the Zoom room.
Hello, my name is Margot Puffenberger. I'm running for Maumee City Council. I started getting involved in my community as soon as I got to the area, started community gardens, and was worried about the way the direction the city was headed, just because there were a lot of things happening that I wondered whether they had a plan. So a couple other residents and I started a group to try to get the city to update their master plan, because I found out it hadn't been updated since 1975. And then through working with the city the past few years and trying to do so, I had a few other concerns about how things were run. And 2016 also made me want to do more in my own life. 2020 came around and made me want to do something more in general, further than my own life, to try to make a difference. So I decided to run for city council to try to kind of push forward the things that I already started, make a difference in my kids' lives. They're 11 and 9. So I saw running for city council as a good way to do that, and just get more involved, have a better seat at the table. Mommy had 4 women in council in 1982. Since then, we have 1. We've maybe had 2 in the past, but the large majority is men. I'd like to see, the population more accurately represented at the council level. So if we can at least get 1 more woman on there, I'd be happy. And I am also very appreciative for the endorsement from the Matriots. It meant a lot to be, endorsed by a group like you guys. They were my second endorsement that I got. I still remember. And it was a big deal for me. So I appreciate that. Thanks.
Thanks, Margot. We're happy you're here. And next up is Michelle Grimm.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Grimm. I'm running for Toledo City Council. Right by Margot. So if you don't know where mommy is in Toledo, so it's very close. I'm a public health professional, an educator, and a public policy researcher. I'm a graduate of the University of Toledo with a bachelor's degree in women's studies and a master's in public health. And I earned my doctorate in law and policy from Northeastern University last year. And my life has always been about service. I started volunteering as a rape crisis counselor as a teenager. I did that for 10 years. And that experience led me to become engaged in social justice issues. At the University of Toledo, I worked for 3 years as a sexual assault with the sexual assault education prevention program. I became a health educator and interned with Planned Parenthood and worked in their teen clinic. Since then, I've worked in the public health field in different roles in 3 different cities, here in Toledo, also in Oakland, California, and Chicago, Illinois. And most of my career has involved working with community clinics to bring healthcare to people in need. As a doctoral student, I interned as a policy analyst with the Chicago Department of Public Health, working on initiatives to foster healthier and safer communities. I'm running for Toledo City Council at large because I love Toledo. I have deep roots in Toledo, and I'm invested in the success of the community. And I believe I can help build on that success. I believe that electing women makes communities stronger and enriches the civic process. Right now, Toledo, the first time ever, has majority women on city council. And hopefully we can continue that trajectory. Yes, hopefully we can continue and with getting elected in November. And again, I'm also very grateful for the Matriots and being endorsed by the Matriots, and that's really helped my campaign. And yeah, I'm really excited to be running and meeting you all here.
Thanks, Michelle. It's nice to see you. Nora Katzenberger, you're up.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for including me in this discussion. I'm Nora Katzenberger. I'm running for school board in the city of Lakewood, which is a suburb west of Cleveland. I'm a first-time candidate, and I'm running against 2 incumbents who have served for 30 years plus and have never been opposed. So it's a daunting challenge, but I'm excited about it. And, as a lot of people have been discussing, school board, it seems to be where all the action is this year when it comes to elections. So it's been an interesting year. I'm a longtime volunteer in our schools, and I have 2 children in our schools, 2 daughters, ages 13 and 15. And it's just been an important commitment to me to be involved in our schools. I've been involved in helping start an LGBTQ plus parents group, helping connect our special needs community with a local arts organization for educational opportunities. I've served on numerous committees, and I also chaired our school levy campaign in 2020, which was an interesting experience considering the election kept changing, and we were very fortunate in that it was really successful. And the fact that our voters, 2/3 of our voters ended up having to vote remotely, and the fact that our community turned out in such a circumstance really to support our schools, that was pretty much the only thing they were voting on, really made me want to serve even more. So I'm excited to be doing this. I'm especially grateful for the Matriots endorsement. I have to say that interview was probably one of the more entertaining interviews I've been involved in, and it was just sad that it was only half hour. And I've also been involved in a lot of elections for women, including one who's also on this panel, because I think it's really important, as others have said, to have representation in our communities at all levels. So I look forward to the next 3 weeks, and I appreciate the support, and I hope to keep this going long after November 2nd. So thank you.
Thanks for being here, Nora. Polly Taylor Gherkin, you're up next.
Yeah. Thank you. So I just want to use a part of my 2 minutes to give a shout out to Michelle Grimm, and she's right. And I am also in Toledo. I'm running for Toledo School Board, but a number of years ago, I ran for Toledo City Council, and I was one of 25 people on the primary ballot, and I was the only woman. And I still was not elected to City Council. So I am super proud of the turnaround our city has had, and then also for Margot, who is just literally down the street from me and mommy. So we're really happy. I'm concluding my second term on the Toledo Board of Education, seeking a third 4-year term. I was uniquely qualified to land on the Board of Education after spending 30 years working for the district. So I worked for TPS, Toledo Public Schools, for 30 years. The first half of that, or a little more than half, as a school secretary. So that's how I learned how schools work. And you know, the school secretaries run the schools, right? And so I learned every aspect of the nuts and bolts of a district, and actually worked my way through college and graduate school with that nice, you know, public AFSCME position as a union member, and eventually became a school psychologist. So that's when I learned what kids need, right? And what teachers need to reach the widest range of learners, and what parents need to advocate for the best outcomes for their students. And then now I have this 8 years in that policy and oversight role on school board, sometimes in the weeds a little more than my administration would prefer because of my background and my experience. But I think all in all, I've come to be known as a good resource to the district. And certainly I have the expertise to chair the committees that I chair. I chair the HR committee, and I chair the curriculum committee, as well as the early childhood education committee. And we've been really on the move in Toledo Public Schools, regaining the trust of our community, getting the community to reinvest in our district instead of coming after us, right? And I have a really good team on the board. We're working really well together to continue to move us forward, and to start focusing on the things that are important, including, you know, treating social emotional learning as something as important as learning to read and do math, and also, you know, treating the whole child and making sure that we have robust partnerships with our mental health communities, as well as making sure that we have living wages for all of our workers. Sometimes we look at those competitive wages at the top of the pay scale for our professionals and licensed folks, and don't get to look as closely at some of the non-licensed lower wage workers have been really fighting to bring those wages up to a living wage. And, you know, as we know, that is affecting women more than other fields, including paraprofessionals and so forth, who spend the whole day with your children, sometimes at wages that are also allowing them to qualify for childcare subsidies and even food stamp benefits. So we want to push that and make sure all of our workers are making a living wage, and then really continuing to respond to this pandemic. So looking forward to another 4 years, and certainly excited about the Matriots and endorsement at this point.
Thank you, Polly, and thank you for continuing to run in this climate for school board, where it can be a real challenge. And so the last individual I see here, I think, is Jennifer Meyer. Jennifer.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jennifer Meyer, and I am running for Westlake City Council, Ward 4. I too am running against an incumbent who has been in the position for 22 years. I have actually gotten involved in some of the political business, getting a quick introduction to how that can go. But but I'm persevering. I am a wife, a mother of 2 young children who attend school at the Westlake City Schools, and I am a lifelong public servant. I was a City of Cleveland prosecutor, and then I went to the law department where I represent police officers in excessive force and wrongful death cases. I then moved to the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office where I continued to do civil litigation and representing the Cuyahoga County Jail and the County Sheriff's Department. And then I went to the appellate unit where I did a lot of representing of victims, which was very difficult, but necessary work. And right now I work for the city of Parma as their principal attorney and risk manager. So I'm continuing to look at liabilities and still being able to represent police officers at the same time. One of the reasons why I wanted to run is the lack of representation. It is the Westlake Board City Council currently has all males except one female who's not running again. Nobody has a young family. There's no representation for young families. In May of 2020, I learned that an issue that we had voted on for Westlake called Issue 53, we were supposed to set aside money for Peterson Pool, for a senior center, and for a sports complex. And the current city council did the pool and the senior center and have decided that they're not going to do the sports complex and aren't really taking responsibility or letting anyone know why they're not doing that. And I just feel that there needs to be a voice for those who are raising young families in Westlake. It is turning over. There are young families, people who haven't started families, and people who are also deciding to retire here in Westlake, but they all need a voice, and that's why I'm running.
We are glad that you're running. So thank you so much. And thank you all for the introduction and for letting us know a little bit more about what you're doing. You know, we have some esteemed members of our Northeast and Northwest Ohio endorsement committee on the call today. And what I think is really interesting is we work in this hive model where we endorse regionally. And so for some of you, our members have not gotten to hear why you're running and what you're up to in the northern part of Ohio. So this is a really encouraging and exciting moment to get to hear across the northern part of Ohio what is happening. Today, we have with us a guest, as I mentioned. We have Haley Baining, who is a founding member of the Matriots. And she is going to be talking with us today and sharing and helping us coordinate our discussion about what's happening in politics right now, what's happening in your candidacy. And Haley is the founder and CEO of StoryForge, where she and her team help businesses and nonprofits craft strategic narratives based on the desired impact that entity wants to have in this world. In my conversations with her, she has just the unique ability to zero in on the change that an organization wants to see in the world, and then to align their messaging to that greater good that the organization hopes to have. And the Matriots has been a beneficiary of this as well. When she's not helping her clients at StoryForge, she's helping us with our messaging, and also helping through invaluable partnerships in her community, where she's helping make sure that women are engaged in the C-suite and in the boardroom and in business. So we're very lucky to have her here today to help us moderate our question and answer roundtable. And I hope that you and our community out there on Facebook gets to know a little bit more about Haley through this process. Oh, sorry, a little bit more about each of you through this process. Maybe they'll learn about Haley too, if we're lucky, but more about each of you candidates through our conversation. Haley, I'm going to toss it over to you to go ahead and moderate the question and answer.
Right, wonderful. Well, thank you, Emily, and thank you. First of all, thank all of you for running. I remember in the early days of Matriots, when we were just a nascent organization, there were a lot of women sitting around in a room pointing at each other and saying, "Are you going to run? Are you going to run? Well, what about you? You should run." And so I know I speak for myself that I am so grateful to have so many capable people running for office and giving us great folks to endorse and support and encourage on the trail. So I know we have a couple of folks that have to leave early. Stephanie, if you're still with us, I know you have to go in a couple of minutes. So if you're still with us, I'll direct my first question to you. Otherwise, we'll move on to some of your colleagues.
Right, I am here. I'm just getting into my car, but I'm listening. Yep.
Wonderful. Well, Stephanie, you mentioned that you have been involved in public service and social justice for a long time, but this is your first time running in Cleveland, where only 4 out of 17 people on Cleveland City Council are women. So I'm curious to know, what challenges did you find running for office there in Cleveland that maybe you didn't expect to run into?
Stop. Okay, so and I'm gonna turn on my camera so people can see me as I am answering the question. Okay, so just a correction. So this is not my first time running for Cleveland City Council. For people that don't know, I actually have run for Cleveland City Council. This is my 4th time. So people just see you and they just know I ran at 26 in 2005, 2008, and 2013. But again, people see me as state rep and they're like, oh, so that's where I started. I would just say it's hard, and I would say uniquely for women, there is a political dynamic in the city of Cleveland where it is evident they do not want women leading and serving. It's a fact. Statistically, you look at it and you have to overcome it. And that's even from community members in a variety of culturally different realms. As a society, we have been taught that men lead better. And I should think at this moment, we should be more looking at the substance and the character of people versus some generic societal value that has not achieved us the results that we want and we say that we desire. At this time, Cleveland uniquely should be really ready for and ripe for some change. Statistically speaking, Cleveland is at the bottom. You hear we're the largest, poorest, biggest city in the nation. Cleveland is the worst city for Black women. You hear, things that are going on in our justice system. We know what's going on with our infant and maternal mortality crisis. So the list is going on and on and on. And it has been led and shepherded by men. Well, by golly darn it, why can't we let some women in and maybe help fix these things? It actually might work. So that's kind of my thing. I mean, it's always like you're scrambling to raise money, you're scrambling to tell the story, and then you're still doing the service that you do, whether in my case, I'm a caregiver for my mother, I'm a full state rep, I still am doing that. And every time that I have run for public office, I've never had the luxury to quit my job to run for office. I've always been a full-time employee. And, you just have to manage your time and manage your money. And sometimes you win and sometimes it's a learning experience. And so hopefully for me, the 4th time will be the charm.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Stephanie, for running. And thanks for being with us tonight when I know you have another meet and greet that you need to go to. I'm curious to hear maybe from Sarah. Sarah, you are one of 2, you're one of 2 women running, I believe. And I wonder what you found most surprising about this particular campaign season, and what maybe you have done to overcome some of those things that have surprised you.
Yeah, so there were 3 of us that ran in the primary. There's 2 of us left running for 3 seats. So it's kind of unique that we have 3 council at large. So folks get to vote for 3 people. I think one of the surprises has been, Lakewood is, I guess, lucky in the sense of we have a lot of great candidates. We have a very informed electorate. We have a very involved community. So all of these 6 remaining candidates are really in it. It's not really, so even though we had a primary and we were fortunate that we had a very strong result in that primary for my campaign, we're all still really in it. And so it's extremely expensive to run in Lakewood. So that's been, I did know that, but it's also still surprising to me that I frankly have to raise more than twice what a city council member makes in a year in order to run for the seat. So that's a huge surprise. But on the bright side, I'd say a good part of that surprise has been how engaged folks are in our campaign, and how much it had always been my hope. We had some divisions in Lakewood over the last several years. And as a community organizer, I had brought a lot of those folks together around issues that were sort of bigger than any one of those divisive issues, that we were able to do that with the campaign as well, because that's been my work on council in the short time I've been, is to try to bring our community together. And that certainly seems to be the case. So we seem to be the candidate that everyone can agree on. and I hope that continues to be the case. But yeah, it's been a very active campaign. It's a hard fought one. So it's a little surprising how much energy people put into a technically part-time running for a technically part-time position. But I keep joking that it's a full-time job to keep my part-time job that I do full-time. So so that's kind of where I am right now.
I see a lot of smiles and nods of recognition from some of your colleagues here on this call. I think this seems like more than a full-time job for many of you to run. And it's good to, Sarah, it sounds like you have a very engaged group there and a very engaged community. Jennifer, are you finding the same thing, that same level of engagement in your community, or are you finding a different situation?
It is a different situation here. The incumbent, actually, when I circulated the petition, almost every single person asked me who our council person currently is. Even though he's been it for 22 years, there's been a lack of communication over the last 22 years and a lack of access to our representative. And so not only has it been difficult, having a family, working full time, but also trying to get across to all these people who I am and why city council is important. That has been the challenge, to try to find that. And I did yesterday, I went to the new mosque that was built here in Westlake on Columbia Road yesterday, and met with some residents there. And several of them said, why haven't we seen any literature dropped yet? Where is it? And like, we're trying, we're coming, we're trying the best we can, but it has been a little difficult to get people engaged. But once we do get to talk to people, or if people have called the council person and have not gotten a response, those people are engaged.
Okay, that's good to see. I wonder if there is something unique about running against a longtime incumbent. Nora, you're also a first time running, but against incumbents. Have you seen a similar situation as Jennifer has?
Somewhat. It's interesting. The two people I'm running against, like I said, have been in office since the 90s. And there are 5 people on Lakewood School Board, and they kind of toggle back and forth in terms of who's running. They're all kind of at-large positions. And the other 3 have had challengers on and off throughout the years, but for whatever reason, these 2 folks have been on there forever and no one's run against them. And I'm finding it's sort of a mix. So some people, like, they each have their supporters, but I've actually had people say, well, now who's up for re-election again? Or who are those guys? I haven't really heard of them. And it's kind of, I think part of it is that, to go back to what I was saying previously, it's been regarded as sort of a sleepy, kind of quiet thing in the past. And over the last year, during the pandemic and all the different educational models, people certainly became a lot more engaged in what the school board was up to. And then to top that off with what's going on right now with a lot of the outside influence on school board elections, we're fortunate we don't have any outside funded candidates that are sort of acting as disruptors in our election, but we're certainly having folks show up to our school board meetings and disrupting. And so I think that's getting people's attention a lot more. And they're realizing that, hey, we really want somebody who has kids in the schools and who's really involved in what's going on right now. So I hope that we, skews things in my favor, but
Have you found, Nora, that your experience in the district is helping in that very politically charged environment that we're in right now?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I certainly hope so. I think it's just different to have been a parent in the last couple of years. It's different to have had, you know, trying to shepherd children through remote learning and hybrid learning and getting back into the classroom and, you know, all of the social and emotional issues that go along with that, and seeing friends with special, you know, children with disabilities who are struggling in a whole different way. And to be sort of that engaged, I think makes a difference in the way I'm able to talk to people about my election. And then also, you know, when you have kids in the schools and they're talking about, you know, all of the hot button issues like masks and critical race theory and social emotional learning. Those are my kids. They walk those halls every day. So I have a different level of passion and a much stronger sense of urgency when it comes to these issues.
Yeah. And Polly, you're also running for Board of Education and concluding your second term. How has the environment changed this year as you're running? Are you seeing some of the same things Nora is? And how have you been, how's that playing into your campaign?
So, you know, we're a rather large urban district, 22,000 kids, and we've been, you know, really focused on reinventing how we reach families during the pandemic. And we've literally had to create multiple school districts and do things that require a lot of planning with no planning, like having, you know, a virtual school and having a hybrid school, and, you know, right down to making sure teachers had the equipment at home in order to teach remotely. So we've been scrambling just like any other district and focusing on, you know, doing the job, right? And I remember a longtime councilwoman, Janine Perry, back in the day during campaign season, once said, you know, doing the job is campaign. And so doing the job every day and, you know, getting out in front of things and making sure that there's a school bus in the neighborhood that provides Wi-Fi, right, until we could get hotspots out. So we've been really, really focused on the hard work of continuing to keep families engaged. As far as the hot button divisive issues, we're kind of, I think, again, because we're an urban district, they've taken a little longer to make it to our boardroom. And I like to believe that's because the community has our back on these topics, and that we're doing the right thing, and the community is not going to, you know, put up with too much nonsense in that regard. And we certainly got a lot of you know, hate around masks, mask mandates, and that sort of thing, but they weren't storming our board meetings. What did end up happening is we have an opponent. So there's three incumbents up, and there are 4 people running, and we do have an opponent who is fancies himself a disruptor, and, you know, is just on the whole critical race theory bandwagon. And this is proof that they're teaching divisiveness. And they tried to come to a board meeting a few weeks ago, our last board meeting. And I think they thought they were going to be disruptive. And I'm like, is that all you got? You know, so it wasn't really all that disruptive. And I think he has maybe 2 followers now. I'm being flippant at this point, but it's less a challenge to my candidacy than it is a distraction for doing the work, right? So we don't need that distraction right now. We got hard work to do every day on this board, and we work really hard. We have a committee structure where it's not just that board meeting that people think is is this all they do? Is they, you know, we have our board meetings go quickly. We have a consent agenda, so it's not a lot going on at the board meeting. So people sometimes think that means we're not doing anything or we're not being transparent, when in fact we are each on 3 or 4 committees that meet monthly. And those are also public, and all of the documents and everything for those committees are on board docs, everything that we see, the public can see, including all the minutes afterwards. So a lot of work happens in these committee meetings. So we're putting, 40 hours a month into what looks like an hour and a half board meeting to people who, think they're going to come to the board meeting and, have all their interactions there. And that's really just not the place for it. I'm often reminding people that our meeting is being held in public, which is a minor distinction from a public meeting. Right? So we're doing our business in front of you in a fishbowl, but we're doing our work also publicly and quite accessibly and transparently, but it's not necessarily happening here. So I think we, so far it's been a distraction more than it has been directly impacting my campaign. I'm getting more hate on social media than I've ever had, but I've also got a professional social media plan in play where my social media is going a little wider than it used to go when it was organic. But it's all the same stuff. They just keep coming on saying just really ridiculous things to the point it's laughable, right? I mean, it's just really laughable, but it's hard. It's not cool with having people, say hateful things on social media to you. But it's, I think we're in a place where we're going to be insulated from most of the real hot button stuff for the time being.
Wow, that's good to hear. We'll be calling you for tips on how to manage it when it hits all of us.
Yeah.
You mentioned Polly, and I'm curious, maybe Michelle, if you could speak to the pandemic. How has campaigning this year specifically changed potentially what your challenges are, what you're trying to overcome? And Margot, I'll ask for your thoughts on that too.
Yeah, I think certainly the pandemic has made it a huge challenge with campaigning. A lot of us have noticed, especially myself, have noticed that people don't want to answer their doors. When you go door to door, they're a little more reluctant. It was a bit more of a challenge to gather signatures because there weren't all of the parades and summer gatherings that you would normally have to collect signatures. So that was a little more challenging than most years. I've noticed it's harder to get volunteers because people don't want to go door to door because of the pandemic. And even though last year we did see record turnouts for our federal elections, we had a very low turnout in Lucas County for our municipal elections. And that's probably still, a lot of people are really weary of going out and voting. And I think people need to remember that local elections matter. But yeah, I think people are still weary of, going out, engaging. So yeah, I think really the pandemic has changed the dynamic of a lot of campaigning. We've been able to return to in-person fundraisers, but I know last year they had to do virtual fundraisers. And so yeah, I think that the dynamic has really, with the pandemic, has really changed the way of campaigning. And yeah, I'm really interested to hear Margot's perspective too. So yeah.
Yes, Margot, what are you seeing in Mommy?
Well, I was remembering back to getting signatures. So this is very new to me. I've not been involved politically. So a lot of my first in running or my first in general. So the signatures, but things that I've always been involved with, Chamber, Town Business Association, all these groups, Garden Club, you name it, where I could have gotten signatures in no time. Those things weren't going on. So I was doing a lot more kind of going around and door to door to get them. But I've been a little bit more leery as of late with the latest surge. My sister-in-law works in healthcare at Toledo Hospital. And so, I've been trying to deal with adjusting how I want to do events. So, I did, my first event was indoors. My second was outdoors uptown. And then I've hosted some meet and greets at the parks, once again, just wanting to keep things outdoors. Mm-hmm. So I've been trying to do that. Just I'm more comfortable that way. I felt like a lot of others would be as well. And I mean, I guess overall that's been my thing. Trying to decide whether should I have the mask on to go up to the door. Some people are like, you can take that off.
Yeah. It's funny, as a new a person running for the first time, I think we've all been challenged with, how do we do this? You know, how do we do the mask? Do we do inside? Do we do outside? But there must be also, if I could shift a little bit to some unique things, Margot, that you're need to address because this is your first time. So I wonder if you could share with us, what do you wish you'd known before this campaign? Or what are some of the things that looking back, you wish you had known before you started?
It's been such a quick kind of learn as I'm going. I mean, I feel like, so with door to door, there's a lot of kind of unknowns with that for me. And I guess I'm kind of going back on still some of the difficulties, just that, you know, my campaign manager wants to make sure I have someone with me when I'm going door to door. And so it's hard to be as flexible as I'd like to be, to make sure I'm trying not to be too big of a disruption to my family. Like, I don't want to totally alienate my kids and my family during the process. So, you know, I knew that was going to be an issue, but I guess maybe not as much as it's been. Just more, it's more kind of issue in my mind, in that I want to make sure I feel like I'm doing as much as I can to try to get elective, but not doing too much that, you know, I'm taking too much time from my family, taking too much time from, you know, my kids, making sure I'm getting to go to their events. So I guess, I don't know as if it's something that I didn't know beforehand and I wish I would have. It's just kind of, you know, some things that I've come across while running, and you know, I get all of my door to doors planned out, and it's like then rain hits, and so I try to keep those certain amounts for the week, and you know, half of them get canceled because of the weather. So that's my biggest thing so far. Has just been trying to get out to go door to door a little bit more often, more like what I would have liked. But you know, still feeling good about the amount of work that I'm putting in, because I feel like I'm working hard. I'm doing as much as I can. So I'm happy about that. It's just, I'd like to be able to do more door to door.
It's interesting. Something that Polly said came back into my mind as you were speaking, Margot, which is doing the job is campaigning. And it's so great to hear many of you talk about being a member of your community, being a mom, having kids in the school district, being a member of the city that you're running for city council, and that just being out there and being you and doing what you do every day is such a part of your campaign. So I want to be thoughtful about our time, and we have, I think, a couple of questions that we'd like everyone to address. So before we do a round the robin here with that final question, I might just ask is if anyone wants to share how potentially being a woman running has maybe seen as a disadvantage, but has turned into an advantage for you on the campaign.
I can speak to that a little bit if you'd like.
Great, thanks, Sarah.
Sure. I think one of the big advantages has actually been, I think a lot of women got, like a lot of us on the call, got more activated after 2016 and have been, and we've been working together. So we had some existing networks, as well as, you know, Nora and I are both in the LGBT parent group. You know, when you're a mom in the community, you make a lot of connections naturally. And so I think there is a certain built-in, you know, connectedness of outreach, of us taking care of each other. We do that naturally. Normally, even before I was ever on council, I was the one who organized our block party. You know, we're the ones who organize food trains when somebody's sick. You know, it's the women in our community. And so when the regular campaign strategies aren't always available, like during COVID, or it's a natural, we already have some of those connections. And I think that that's an advantage that we have as in this particular climate.
That's great. So we have joining us through Facebook Live and then listening later to this recorded session, we have matriots all over the hive, from Northeast Ohio to Northwest Ohio, Central Ohio, Southern Ohio, lots of women who want to know what more they can do for each of you, how we can support you in your campaign and get more of you elected to office so that we can achieve our grander shared vision of what this state could be. So I'm going to go in turn and ask each of you if you could ask for one thing right now for your campaign, one thing that we, the Matriots, that all of those folks out there in the hive, all of our other bees could do to support you, what would that be? So let me start, if I can, go down the list. I'll start with Sarah. Sarah, could you share?
Sure, thank you for the question. We actually have a fundraiser Thursday night, and that is probably the number one thing. We have a lot of very well-funded candidates, male candidates who have those patriarchal dollars, so we could definitely use some female money up in here, would be very helpful. So whether you come to the fundraiser or not, that would be number one. And then I'll just throw in another one, is sharing stuff on social media. Any of that organic outreach is always helpful also.
That's great. Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. Margot, what can we do for you? What can the Matriots out there in the hive do right now to support you?
So the same ask I was thinking as Sarah, is the social media, getting some more shares and getting that around to more people. I feel like, I've been trying to do, 3 posts a week, which I'm ramping up now up until the election, doing more kind of each week and getting my email out. But I feel like I haven't grown that base on my Facebook page and all the social media accounts as much as I anticipated or hoped. I don't feel like that's been a detriment at all, but I'd like to see that grown a little bit more. But then in general, just educating people why it's so important for women to be in these positions. There's just, books I've read in the past year and articles, you just don't realize just how important it is to have women in a position where they can make important decisions, and kind of the lacking there is by only having men there. And in Maumee, when talking to residents through work with a master plan and things like that in previous years, everyone, it's the good old boys club. I don't want that for my community anymore. So I want to get more women down there. So just educating too why it's so important, and why that different perspective is so important.
That's great. Thank you. So we've got funds for everyone, social media, helping our candidates increase social media, educating the people in our lives as to why it is important to have representation from women on our city councils, on our school boards, in our state offices. Michelle, if you were speaking now to everybody out there in the Matriots universe, what's one thing that we could do for your campaign right now?
I also have a fundraiser on Monday, October 18th. It's my last fundraiser before the general election. If you are in the area of Northwest Ohio, it's at the Ye Olde Dirty Bird downtown. You can go to michellegrim.com, 1L, 1M, to donate if you can't make it, if you're not in the area. So yeah, any contributions that you can make last minute, because we have a very aggressive paid communications campaign plan. We're getting up on TV next week, and direct mail, digital, all that good stuff. So yeah, if you could make a contribution, that would be wonderful. Again, michellegrim.com, 1L, 1M.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. Yes, and I can see that some folks are posting their links in the chat for those who are following along with the chat. So please do that. Share your links so that our Matriots can find you, find your fundraisers. So thank you, Michelle. Nora, what's one thing that our Matriots Hive could do to support you and support your campaign right now?
Well, I think it kind of comes down to what other folks have said, either time or treasure. So I don't have a fundraiser plan, but I did put my website up there, and I welcome I'm trying to do at least one mailing before election day. As Sarah pointed out, we have a very crowded field in Lakewood, a lot of noise from mailings and yard signs and everything. So it's hard to stand out among that crowd. But then, also some boots on the ground volunteers for lit drops and postcards. Anyone who's close to my area, I have a couple of things coming up where people can join in those efforts and just continue to get the word out. As a first-time candidate, that's my biggest challenge.
That's great. Time and treasure, and let our fingers do the walking and get the word out as much as we can for you, Nora. Thank you. Polly, what's something that our Matriots can do to support you in your campaign right now?
So I'm just going to say, go say nice things on my Facebook page when you see somebody beat me up. Although I've been, follow me on Facebook, say nice things. But I'm going to use this opportunity to say something about what you can do for public education in general across the state of Ohio, back to doing the job, right? And we need to really get a close eye on what's happening at the state level and the assault on public education. That includes everything from vouchers and charter school expansion to high stakes testing that don't measure what they purport to measure, and taking some of that pressure off the schools. And then even more recently, we've got legislation flying that makes it difficult for us to raise our local share of the tax burden, thanks to a certain representative who just continues to impair our ability to raise those taxes that are already known to be unfair. And legislation flying right now that tells us what we can and can't teach about the truth. And teachers are going to lose their licenses for teaching divisive content and that sort of thing. So more than ever, I honestly believe there's an assault on public education from the state. And so to rescue all of us from what I'm afraid is going to be a dismantling of public education, pushing it more towards the private sector, and that's a really bad idea. So I'm looking for support at the state level.
That's great. Well, thank you, Polly. Yes, we all can use our voices to advocate at the state level while we support all of you on the ground. Jennifer, would you like to close us out with what we can do, what the Matriots can do to support you in your campaign right now?
I think the biggest thing, as everyone said, is social media. But I also think that we need to think a little bit outside of the box, because our older community members don't necessarily use social media as much as the other members. And it is hard to get into. My ward has 3 elder communities, assisted living, and we can't really get into those facilities to talk to the members of the community. And so it's hard to try to reach everyone. And there's also platforms that, I'm 42, but I don't know anything about TikTok. And I honestly don't want to learn about it from what I have been seeing. But the social media outreach would be essential at this point for all of us.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. Well, thank you all. This has been such an amazing conversation, and I cannot believe we are already out of time. So I'm going to send the mic back over to Emily to help us understand what we should be doing next.
Thank you so much, Haley. And thank you all for your wonderful and robust commentary this evening. I've been taking copious amounts of notes about what we can do to partner with you and what's happening in each of your communities. So I appreciate the educational journey we've been on together this evening. Importantly, from the Matriots perspective, for those of you out there who are not yet Matriots members, we would ask you to take a look at our website, www.matriotsohio.com. Come join us. Help invest in these women's campaigns and women across the state. As I mentioned, we've endorsed 139 women this year, so and hope to keep that trajectory going up into the future. So we would love to have you join us. On our website as well, we have candidate links You can read about each of these candidates, dig a little deeper, and then there are links to help you volunteer with them. So they've posted information about themselves here in the chat, but there's also a way on our website to get to volunteer with them. We, as Matriots, we endorse, but we also support and encourage our women to run for office. And so this is your moment in time to be able to do that here for the next 3 weeks and then into the future. So I am so thankful that we've had the chance to be together today, but this should not be the last time we're together. We should be out in the community, knocking on the doors with you all, joining those fundraisers and being participants in your campaign. So my great and sincere thanks to you all for joining us. Thank you, Haley, as well, and to my Matriots staff who are here too. This was lovely. And we will get back together again soon, I hope. Good luck to you in your campaigns. Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you.